Welcome to the X Factor podcast. I'm your host, Charles Epstein. Joining me today is Douglas Montgomery, a senior leader with 25 plus years of international experience driving business and IT transformation in complex, high-risk environments. His expertise spans finance, healthcare, and energy, with achievements including product design, patents, and recognition as a Malcolm Baldrige Award finalist. He is also an accomplished guitarist and, most importantly, a longtime pal. Hey, Doug, how are you?
Very well. How are you, Charles?
I'm doing well. Hang on a second. Let me just make sure our levels are okay.
Okay.
My levels are typically the ones that are a little bit low, but I think we're going to be okay. All right. Anyway, good to see you, Doug. Haven't seen you in a little bit. Everything good?
Everything's well. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. I mentioned you're an accomplished guitarist. I'm not sure if a lot of people who've known you professionally over the years know that, and know that you did study at the Berklee School of Music for Guitar and Musical Theory. Is that a fact? I mean, is that a pretty well-guarded secret or not?
Not well guarded, but not highly publicized either. So people who have known me for a long time know that I've always been a musician. Some other people don't.
Yeah, just do me a favor. I don't know if it's your mic or what, but the signal is a little bit faded, or if you could just project. So what caused you to change your path from music to IT and business consulting?
Well, I was working for a company that did engineering and short-run manufacturing during the day, and I was playing, music at night. And that company started to purchase and merge with other companies. And I got the opportunity to lead the efforts to consolidate their IT systems, consolidate business processes, retrain people, reorganize things, and went through that for a few years. And I found that I really loved to do that. I loved everything about it. So then I changed my direction and started really focusing on IT and business transformation, and many times in merger and acquisition situations, but and others as well. But I really like there's a lot of creativity involved with that as well. So it kind of has some similar aspects as music does.
Yeah. But you still kept up to play. How are the chops these days?
Oh, I'm getting slower as I get older. But as a guitar teacher told me many years ago, he said, technically, you're the best you're going to be in your 20s and 30s. He said, but the expression won't really kick in and mature until you're in your 50s and beyond. And he was very right.
So how would you say you've improved from then to now? Is it a matter of the ability to express yourself? Is it a matter of tone? Do you have better ears?
It's better control, but it's really in the expression and the techniques that you use in these subtle nuances in, how you attack strings, how you work around, the meter that the music is in. So, there's the thing that they teach you is always be on one, but anywhere else, you don't have to be on the beat at all.
Interesting. If you could wake up tomorrow and be any one guitarist, who would that guitarist be?
Oh, boy, who would that be? I think Jeff Beck.
Good answer. Excellent answer. Huge fan myself.
His technique is unparalleled.
I'm sorry?
his technique was unparalleled.
Yeah, and quite literally, there's nobody who plays like him, right?
Nobody.
Nobody. I don't want to get too into this. We can talk exclusively about Jeff Beck and turn this into the Jeff Beck podcast very easily. Wouldn't need much coaxing there. But I always tell people, you got to check out his show. Man, you can find it on YouTube. You can find it elsewhere. When he did, I think 3 nights at Ronnie Scott's, that iconic club in London with an amazing group. And the sounds that he coaxes out of that Strat are just absolutely magical.
Yes, that's true.
Nobody sounds like him. Anyway, okay. So let's get to it. We had a really interesting conversation to lead up to this. We were talking about how AI is clearly in its infancy, especially vis-a-vis workplace application. As you noted, there was a lot of fear and anxiety that festers, and this is your language, which is very nice, in the petri dish of the unknown. If you don't mind, I'm going to have to start using it. Fear and anxiety fester in the petri dish of the unknown. It's almost poetical, Doug. Today we really want to shed light on both the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns. I hate to sound like Donald Rumsfeld on this, but that's
right.
One piece of his legacy that actually we can embrace. So yeah, both the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns of AI. Then I want to explore how leaders can transform that fear and anxiety into curiosity, and in keeping with the overarching theme of the AX podcast and the AX project, generally how they can cultivate well-being and develop practical navigation strategies for AI augmented workplaces. Let me begin again in that conversation we had last week. You connected AI governance with employee well-being and readiness. So before we dig in, if you would share your thoughts with our audience on that. Broadly speaking, how are they connected?
Okay, so the governance over AI is important for many reasons. And one of the aspects of governance is preparing for people for change and monitoring their reaction to change, and also, make sure that you get their inputs. Because when you look at what happens, right, AI is pretty new. There's a lot of misinformation out there, and people start to imagine all kinds of things, right? So they get that fear, turns into anxiety. Anxiety then reduces their productivity, right? And it also leads to people making bad decisions. So part of what you want to do is, communicate facts very clearly and targeted to the audience so that people begin to understand what's real, what isn't real. That helps to reduce that anxiety. That's all part of a typical change management and governance kind of framework. So by reducing that anxiety, then you lead them to a path where they're feeling like they understand more. You can get them to participate more, which then really helps the entire process, because it's part of any good governance framework. It relies on people to do what you're asking them to do, and making sure that they're not doing what they shouldn't be doing, right?
Right.
That's really the connection between the two.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, so let's first talk about the known unknowns, the things we know. The things we know that we don't yet understand about AI in the workplace. So what are the key questions about AI implementation, governance, and impact that organizations should be actively investigating if they don't have answers yet? The known unknowns.
Okay. So from an organizational perspective, I first want to start just by quickly saying that a lot of people think of AI as a thing, right? As an entity. right? And that the AI will have unlimited capabilities. It can learn anything, do anything, and it's going to take over for people. That's not realistic at all.
Mhm.
Okay. So part of getting, addressing those known unknowns as people don't understand what AI really is, right? And, there's many technical categorizations of different types of AI, but it basically boils down to there's generative and there's agentic, right? So when you start people saying, okay, so there, those types, so generative, that's the kind of most people are used to,
Right.
right? Draw me a picture of this, write a story about this, or look at, a page of information and summarize it for me, right? That is generative. Then there's agentic, where you have AI actually performing tasks within systems that humans normally do.
Right.
Okay. So that starts to give people a basis of understanding, say, okay, so it's not this all powerful being that is going to be unleashed and is going to wreak havoc on the world.
Right.
So that's a beginning point. But the if you look at AI and implementing AI within an organization is very much like implementing any other kind of significant transformation, right? Because AI is a transformation uh, event, activity, really. Uh, so that when you look at it in those terms, then you can apply very common frameworks for organizational and IT kind of change, right? Whether it be ADKAR or, McKinsey, or many different kinds of frameworks available. And you follow those dictates. And basically, you know, the thing that makes this or will make it successful, that anecdotally, I don't see much in the marketplace now. And the customers I've been dealing with have been really kind of missing this point, is that it's not about we have to implement AI quickly or we're going to lose competitive advantage. You have to implement AI quickly, but do it in a controlled and thoughtful way, right?
Uh-huh.
So you always start with, what's the objective? What are you going to try to get out of this, right? What are those business objectives? How are you going to define what success is? How are you going to measure it? Who's going to do that and when, right? To set the basis of what are you trying to do, so you can develop your strategy and your roadmap so you can do this in an organized way,
Right.
right?
Right. Um, do you find that there is a major problem with so-called shadow AI? I've spoken over the past years about shadow IT, bringing their own tools in, and the CTO, CIO has no awareness, no visibility into what these people are using, which could very easily put the organization at risk. Do you see this as an emerging problem or an existing problem with AI?
It's one of the biggest risks there is, because as
Yeah.
soon as you let that happen, right? And that's part of the governance, is setting up vehicles to monitor what's in the environment, prevent introduction of AI platforms and models into your environment that you haven't vetted and you haven't implemented in a thoughtful way. And this is something that is happening a lot. And so there's a combination of, you have, shadow AI, or you just have people jumping the gun and just saying, well, we'll use Chat GPT to, you know, create a lot of these kinds of documents and everything that will, it'll save us a ton of time. But when you do that, what you're doing, especially in unlicensed versions, right, open source kind of situations, is the information you're feeding that AI engine is learning from. And it will spit that information back out again because it has learned it. So it provides that information to others. It has no concept of this information should not be shared and this is okay to share. So in that
Right.
context, whether the AI got in there as, shadow AI that IT doesn't realize it's there, or they allowed something to be there that really doesn't have the security aspects addressed within that environment. You're opening yourself up to exposing all kinds of information, right? Could be private, personally identifiable information, financial information, whatever it is, right? Which can get you into regulatory trouble, right?
Right.
Some pretty big fines can also absolutely ruin your reputation in no time, which
Yeah.
which can kill your business.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Now, the trickier question, the unknown. So, what blind spots do you think most organizations have about AI that they don't even realize they should be concerned about?
Well, I think that the unknown unknowns that present the biggest risk are uh, the facts that even IT people, even AI engineers, don't really know what it's capable of,
Right.
right? So there are many different platforms, and they're all constructed in different ways, and they can do different things. But as we've been seeing when these get rolled out, there are assumptions that, okay, we understand the data flows and everything, where everything is going and what it has access to, what it doesn't have access to. But we're starting to see that in some cases, the AI recognizes a vulnerability that it should have nothing to do with it, shouldn't be looking for it, wasn't anticipated even by the technologists.
Mhm.
So that kind of thing is very concerning. So that takes an extra level of scrutiny, extra level of control, and preventative devices to try to go to all points where access can be gained to that kind of information, and then looking for anything that changes, anything that's doing any kind of queries, regardless of what it is. So there's a lot of extra work, and this can happen in a number of different ways. And it's not only looking for or exposing data vulnerabilities in that way, but it can be many other kinds of things as well. Right. So when you're generating content, is that content accurate? If it's performing tasks, are those tasks being performed accurately or not? So that's also part of that whole governance framework, and that you need humans. And that's what people need to understand. Humans are an important part of using AI, right? It's not that AI is going to replace humans. It's going to make a lot of things much easier, but it'll never replace human empathy, the human creativity, and other, attributes that humans have that, machines and computers cannot have.
Right. Yeah. Um, at the outset, we talked about how fear and anxiety flourish when we find ourselves in uncharted territory. And question I'm going to ask you, you touched on it a little bit when I asked you to connect the dots between governance and the sense of employee well-being. When you work with organizations where employees are anxious about AI replacing them or changing their work fundamentally, how do you help transform that anxiety into productive curiosity and engagement?
A great way to do it is getting input from people, right? Telling them things and saying, well, AI can do this, but it can't do that. Here's what we're going to do. That's all good. And that information helps. And people understanding why you're doing something, right? Where are you going to apply it? How is it going to change your life? Why are you doing it? That's all very important. But even more important for this particular aspect is to get their input, right? Because that gets them thinking about, okay, now how is this going to change my life? So they'll start asking questions about how does this change my life, right? Am I in danger of losing my job or whatever because AI is going to replace it? So talking to them about, okay, tell me what do you do in your normal day? Describe a normal day, and then pick out as they go through, here are the various kinds of things that they do. Then, okay, well, AI can be very useful in these mundane kind of tasks, right? Whether it's data entry or it's searching through a lot of content online to find very specific things. You have to highlight that and say, that when you look at the things that you're doing and what you're describing, AI was going to help you do this part of those activities, right? And it's going to reduce the time it takes you to do those things, which are the things that you either have to do to prepare to do the high value work or record that high value work that you performed into some system. By reducing the effort on the low value, you get them to understand what they do that is of high value and that they are still instrumental in providing that high value activity and input and output.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of my first uses of ChatGPT several years ago, and it was not quite on the radar. I can't say I'm an early adopter of all technologies, but of this, I was relatively early in. And one of the things I did was just played with it. And I'd throw all of these crazy prompts at it, turn an IKEA manual into a haiku poem, a lot of crazy things. And in that spirit of play, you learn things. You
Mhm.
learn its power, its capabilities, also its limitations. I think that kind of approach is also kind of interesting. First, what I'm hearing from you, and I think it's really important, just the act of soliciting input is an important message to send. It says that, you're important. You're going to continue to be important. We want to get your feedback, and we're going to be responsive. And this is going to be a collaborative effort because we're all trying to sort through this. We're all trying to figure that out. But I also think it would be kind of interesting in the spirit of I don't know, serious play, if you will. Giving people these tools and saying, okay, let's see what you can come up with. It also reminds me, again, not to filibuster here. Tom Wolfe, some years ago, wrote a book from Our House to Bauhaus, and he was talking about the Bauhaus. And one of the instructors at the Bauhaus, um, he would give us a challenge. The very first day, the students would come in, he'd give them a piece of paper. And he'd say, okay, I'm going to give you an hour, and I want to see what you can do with a piece of paper. And, you have some of these fledgling architects and some very sophisticated, creative people coming up with all these elaborate origami-esque figures from the paper. And then again, in Tom Wolfe's retelling, and then you'd have some glass blower just take the piece of paper and turn it into a tent, fold it in half. And the instructor, I think it was Mies or, one of these famous Bauhaus architects, he would look at all of what they did and he'd come upon this tent and he'd say, this makes maximum use of the tensile strength of paper. And this, so it was, again, the spirit of play teaching them a really important and somewhat counterintuitive lesson. So I always think that's an underused technique in business, and particularly with AI. I think it would be kind of an interesting exercise to get people thinking, and also realizing that AI is ultimately only as good and as creative as your interactions with it and what you bring to it. You know,
Exactly. Yes, and input is very important. That's another thing that I see that companies aren't careful about what information they're feeding. So you have to give it a lot of thought to that. What kind of data are you going to feed it? Yeah, how accurate is that data? Um, you can use AI to, clean up data sets, and master data sets, get rid of duplications and redundancies, that kind of thing. But uh, I've been playing with AI for quite a while as well. One of the things I found, I did an experiment, and I took a short biography of mine, and I asked, and I used ChatGPT, and I asked it to tailor that based on different scenarios, right? And highlighting, different kinds of roles, and emphasizing different things. And what I found is, in some cases, you know, the way that it wrote it, I felt was better than the way that I did.
right?
But I also found that in some cases, it actually manufactured some information.
Okay, we had a little unexpected glitch. Nothing untoward happened. In any case, Doug, welcome back. Okay, so just to pick up, we were talking about the anxieties that flourish in the unknown, and so much about AI falls into that category. Um, so let me just ask you, what does a healthy AI human collaboration look like? And are there any intimations or indications if and when the balance starts tipping in favor of AI? Are there any things we need to be aware of to make sure that we're going to be in the driver's seat, or we remain in the driver's seat?
Okay, so yes, a healthy balance, as we were talking about, AI performing the low value activities, right? Doing research, summarizing, rewording things, uh, creating drafts of content, that kind of thing, even performing some tasks in computer systems for you. Uh, the the human part has to be, the review, approval of content, validating that, whatever is being created or whatever work was performed was done correctly. It's accurate, it's, complete, it's appropriate, all those kinds of things. So having that balance is extremely important. Now, the thing about that balance is it can easily get out of balance and much more in favor of the AI doing much more work, and doing it unintended, right? Unsupervised, unreviewed.
Right.
But for that to happen, it's really the human aspect of it has to break down. So part of the struggle is that, you can communicate to people what they should, they shouldn't do, that kind of thing. You can put controls in place, system controls that can eliminate some of that kind of thing. But what's going to be very difficult to address is that, for example, you have AI goes out and it collects a whole bunch of data and it summarizes it, and it puts information, say, into a presentation format that you want. Now, some humans can tend to be a little bit lazy, especially over time, right? So you've been working with AI. It's always been doing good stuff. You review it. It always seems real good and everything. And you get lax and you stop looking at things as diligently as you should, right? And the whole process and the assumptions that are being made in the business is that the users are doing certain things with a certain degree of diligence for that balance to be in place and to help make sure that you're not using content that's inaccurate, inappropriate, that kind of thing. So to me, that's the most difficult thing to control. It's much easier to control the system than it is to control a human being. And, the natural tendencies that humans tend to have is to get comfortable. They see things working on a very consistent basis. You start assuming that it's going to continue to do so.
Right.
The thing with AI is it continues to learn.
Yes.
Right. So at any point in time, it can start going off on a tangent, doing unexpected things, giving you unexpected results. So if you're not keeping your eye on it, it's very difficult to pick that up before something,
Right. Chatbots do the darndest things, Doug.
Yes.
We talked about shadow AI. I think there's also something to sneaky AI, stealthy AI. It's learning as we're sleeping. It's learning when we're not paying attention. And, all of a sudden, it pulls the rug out from under us. I know you typically, over the course of your IT business consulting career, talk with business leaders, the CTO, the CIO, the CEO, COO, etc. A lot of our audience is made up of HR practitioners. Have you seen more and more HR being invited into these conversations because so much of this does land on the HR function? So much of it does land on people, which of course is within the purview of HR. Do you see more HR being invited to these conversations or not?
Yes, I do. And typically that happens most frequently in those organizations that really understand the value of the HR function and they have a highly functioning HR organization. Now, not all companies are like that, even big, well known companies. There is a difference in culture and how much emphasis and reliance is put on HR and how concerned is the company about actually concerned about the well-being of employees in a very detailed way. Those that are typically right from the beginning will have HR involved, and they should. And not having HR involved when you're starting on an AI initiative is a huge mistake, right? Having the technology people from IT involved, that's a must. Everybody knows that. Everybody understands it because nobody understands what AI is unless you're a technical person, right?
Right.
Those are
Even
the ones
then.
that really understand it. So that's where IT is always involved, right? Because the C-suite, they say AI, okay, got to have IT handle this. But many organizations I do find are very astute in understanding that the technology part is very separate from the human part, and it's the interaction and the impact on people and how to address that and bring people from a point, again, of fearing unknown to understanding what's going on, how things are going to change, how it's going to benefit them, and how they can participate. So to me, not only need executive sponsorship, you need the right technology people. And as far as technology people, you have to make sure that the IT organization is using third-party resources, because there are very few IT organizations that have AI experts.
Right.
And there's a lot of technology people running around saying that they are AI experts that are not.
Right.
So it's a tricky situation.
For sure. And by the way, this is a perfect opportunity for you to give an unsolicited plug for AIX, Doug. Not that not that I'd insist, but it is a perfect opening. Anyway, teasing. I really do appreciate this. Great to see you. I haven't seen you in a little bit of a while. I really do appreciate your insights on this. And the last thing I'm going to ask, if you're not a Jeff Beck fan, if you're not a Jeff Beck fan, first of all, shame on you. But
How can you
what
not
is
be?
the one album you should listen to?
Okay.
And by the way, I know that that's a hard question
I
because,
think there's two.
okay,
I think if you want to hear the early raw Jeff Beck truth,
truth.
okay? And if you want to hear the beginning of Beck going off into the direction he ended up going, Beckola.
Oh, I would have thought you'd say Blow by Blow.
Blow by Blow is, but I think Ola kind of
Because
was,
that sort of moves him into the Jan Hammer sort of jazz fusion, which he really, with Wire, then he really, really got into that.
yeah, it was kind of like progressive steps. But
Yeah.
Blow by Blow, it would be a good choice as well.
Yeah. So I'm thinking Beckola and Truth sort of in the same rough vein. And then Blow by Blow moves him into sort of that
Yeah, he
next.
was definitely in the other vein by the time Blow by Blow.
Yeah. But listen to it all because
Right.
as you said, nobody like him. Anyway, Doug, really appreciate it. See you soon, man.
Yeah, very good to see you. Great talking with you. Take care.
Yes.